let's review last week what we did, right? So we kind of understood how the health was defined in a ancient way and in a modern way, and how the health condition in the world, and how we have to take personal responsibility and attend to the ill health or morbidity enhancing the tamas energy, identify that and relieve it with um, everyday stretches and breathing and meditation and all those things. And also what kind of activities we can incorporate this yoga into, and so that you can make it a 24-hour yoga in your attitude, in your way of posture, in your way of walking or climbing, lots of things, right? And then finally, we kind of gave you so many yoga scenarios, that you could practice in your sports, in your daily activities, in your, suppose you are diseased some way, or aged or frail, whatever it is, So that was the essence. The main thing to remember there was, how can we prevent morbidity from accumulation of all this tension and inflammation? That's a sign of the tamas, Once you are aware of it, you can do it. But we are at the body only, we were not moving beyond body last week, But body is only one part of ours, and we are going to the next part of ours, which is the mind. You have to enhance yourself. You got to have a vigorous, healthy, and vibrant body. But that's a limitation, that's it. Beyond that, if you identify and if you are scared of losing this body, or if you are really stuck in the body consciousness, you are not going to move from the chakras energy of lower part of it. And then once you are aware, once you are awakened, your energy moves up, and then you have better control of your body and also your mind. So we're going to move into the next element of human being, which is the mind, So last week, I told you just take one slide, and if you remember, this is good enough, okay? You always want to be calm, and you want to sleep well, and you want to power up with your nutrients, and be joyful in your activities and whatever you do, and then move, detox, and fill up with organic foods, okay? So if you remember this slide and then measure your life or anybody else's life, according to these parameters, you have a very healthy body and calm mind, and you perform with joy in life, okay? So this is the take-home slide from last week, okay? And I'm going to give you one slide from today's talk, which is going to be probably useful for you just to remember that slide, But it's going to pretty complicated because we're going to move away from the mind to understand the mind, okay? So initial understanding is very important to follow the talk, okay? So in the end, I'm going to point out, this is the slide that you want to remember, maybe that's some people want to take home slide, Okay, this is a camera shot that they obtained, like having a 720 cameras they used it to catch this particular angle, where you see the sun and also the moon. This is very important slide to understand, because this is the basis of my talk. If you understand this, you understand about your energies, about your mind, about your consciousness, and everything, okay? So this is called Chidabhasa in Sanskrit, okay? What it is, you see, the moon is shining, but in front of the sun's shining, the moon is dull, right? Like that, the sun is our consciousness that reflects on our mind, and mind shines. If you want to confine yourself to the moon, you are going to see the life, you're going to make out of the life just like that, in a dull light. But when you awaken this consciousness, that is what Vivekananda called sleeping giant. When you awaken that sleeping giant, that's the power within you, then what happens is that power guides you through the life. And there is no defeat on anything. But you have to be stationed in the consciousness. That means the reflected light of moon on the mind has to be perceived. You cannot say mind is the one that has the consciousness, like the modern understanding is, and mind is the one that I'm going to identify with. Then I'm going to identify with the thoughts, with the emotions, everything that go through the mind. But once you make mind as the object that is being shown by the sun, which is the consciousness, then you can control that. This is a very, very important point to understand. Okay? So we're going to see how the mind itself has an understanding in the West and on the East. My point here is mind understanding on the East has evolved over thousands of years. There were numerous discussions, numerous texts that they have written. The more I'm coming in contact with those texts, the more amazed I am how much scientific work was done. In the sense, they have an object, they studied it, they experimented with it with the masses of population, and then with the conclusions, they lived. They were experiential with those conclusions. So if you want to understand the science of consciousness, you look at Vedanta. That is the end product of Vedas and the main product of the Upanishads. And that reflected in Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Sutras, or Bhashyas, so many Bhashyas that they've written. Several people came back and revived them. The problem with the modern age is they think they are better than those findings. That is the tragedy. So few people like Carl Jung, they have propositioned some theories and people have taken after them, and they are in a confusion in the middle with so much of mental health. So it's not berating this, or it is not really praising the ancient. It's like what has happened practically. If you look at the mental health problem, all these psychologists, all these therapists, all these psychiatrists are not able to help. So Martin Seligman, who wrote on positive psychology, he was interviewed by the CNN one time. They said, we don't have much time. You got to tell us, is modern psychiatry worked? Did it succeed in reducing mental health? And he said, one word, no. Then they said, no, that's too simple. You have to explain a little bit. Well, it has not worked fully, but it has resulted in some symptom control. Okay. And then he came up with positive psychology. I remember by the mnemonic Perla, P-E-R-L-A. Okay. They are all pleasant, engaging, relating, and then also something accountable, something achievable, okay, or meaningful. Okay. Perma, not Perla, Perma. Okay. M is for the meaning. These are directly related to 4 goals of ancient wisdom. They are dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Okay, dharma, righteousness, kama, desire, artha, wealth, and moksha is the relief. from the suffering of the world. So they had different stages of life. People can earn and have the legitimate desires in a righteous way. That is in the beginning of the life and the middle of the life. So they can make money even to feed the sages. So everything is justified, but ultimately you go for the purpose of human life, which is to get relief from the suffering of the world. Okay. And only humans can do it because they have this consciousness. So you got to identify with that as soon as possible. Then you can really do away with mental illnesses. For example, if somebody has anxiety and depression, they make their mind objective, then what happens is that object can be managed by the consciousness. You are aware. I will come to more deeply into that, okay? That's how mind, Western thought, only the brain has this thoughts, emotions, and memory and imagination, and then intellect. So their conclusion is mind produces the consciousness. But if you look at it, I'm going to make you experience that in the next few slides. So they divided mind into 64 parts actually, but the 4 are most important. And then they also have antarkarnas. That means they are inside you. Those are the classifications. We have talked about a little bit about this, but we'll go details into that. So the question is, who am I? Am I this body? Am I this mind? Or am I the consciousness that is behind these two? That means body is my property, mind is my property. But generally, people are body conscious or they are driven by the compulsive mind. So with the understanding of the Eastern, what they did was, body is important, but not me. Even the thoughts and emotions are happening and going. But who is experiencing those thoughts and emotions? That I is me. And that once you are stationed in that, actually very peaceful sleep, and also this ego-bound self will not be there. So this is the slide you want to understand carefully. Everybody in this talk or anywhere else, they can experientially feel this every day. See, waking state, which is called Jagrat, which we are right now. And then we go to sleep. When you sleep, we experience dream state, right? And then we go into deep sleep where even that mind activity is not there. But you are experiencing absence, not that absence of experience. You are experiencing the absence. Something else is experiencing. That's why you are waking up in the morning. So through all these states, you are there, which is the consciousness, which is the awareness. That they call a fourth state of Turiya. Actually, it's not fourth state. It's always there. It is there while you are awake. It is there while you are dreaming. It is there while you are deep sleep. If you understand that and then get into that state, then your mind, emotions, and body are in your control. You are aware. Is there a time? Is there a practice that I can do? Actually, you are never not that. You are always that. So your ignorance that I'm not that, I have to reach it, is the problem. So this is the fundamental thing, that the aim of all the Vedas, Upanishads, any major religious thing you take it, they ultimately come to that, where we are not this body, we are not this mind, but we own the body, we own the mind. And then we are always there. You don't have to reach it. It's like if you are at home and you want to go out of the country and come back to the home, you don't have to travel anywhere. You are there. This is the very difficult thing for people because they either body condition or mind condition or body consciousness or mind consciousness. So they evolved this chakra system to determine whether you are body conscious or you are mind conscious or you are consciousness. So if you are in the first three chakras, you are body conscious basically. And then anahata up, you are coming into most like a mind consciousness with compassion, with thoughtfulness, speaking nice and all that, okay? And then those are called antahkaranas, the heart chakra, the throat chakra, and the third eye chakra. And finally, when this opens up, then you are merging with the universal conscious, which is you. You are that. Tattvamasi, that's what they said. So viewing chakras this way and seeing where you are is very helpful. If you are driven by hunger and normal desires of the body, you cannot resist not to be asleep, or you are oriented only towards making a livelihood, you are limiting yourself to body consciousness. The moment you started to think, you open up your heart chakra, and then you are becoming more conscious of the world and the people around you, and then you have got yajna. That means you are interconnected with the world, with other people. You are seeing the people's consciousness that is in you and others as the common factor. If you can relate like that, instead of having the images or whatever structures you have built, then you have transcended the world and the worldly thinking. So from being just preserving yourself, making a living, and also thinking of other people and appreciating other people's feelings and empathy, all those things will evolve as you evolve in your consciousness. That's why the science of consciousness explored that. And what's the technique for the consciousness? Yoga. Yoga 24 hours means that you are connected to the same absolute consciousness that is in everybody, like a sun. It is reflecting its light on the mind, and whatever you experience is that. So you are to begin with the consciousness in a happiness state. So you are moving away from that. You are kind of alienated yourself from that. All the anxieties, depressions, all the mental problems, everything is happening. In this slide, you can see there is an IQ, there is a EQ, and there is a SQ. Okay, logical sciences, they all give you IQ. Mental sciences give you emotional quotient. And then having this knowledge that I'm not this body and mind, but I own them, I am the consciousness within, that is the self-knowledge, that is the spiritual IQ. Okay, it doesn't have to do with any religion, because all religions come to the same point: awareness of awareness. Awareness, in other words, consciousness. So believe in your true nature. That is your true nature. Everything becomes possible. I myself am the divine core of existence. Ramana said, when he was asked what is the most important verse in Bhagavad Gita, he said chapter 10, verse 20, which says, the Lord Krishna says, I am the life that is in every being. I am the beginning, middle, and end of it. So the divine core runs through all living beings. Once you identify that, then you are with it. That is the significance of our namaste. We are prostrating to the life within you. If you remember namaste every time, you can relate to that. Now, if you want to understand the mind, see, we know we are conscious. That's the tip of the iceberg though. If you really look at it, there are a lot of things that are stored up in the subconscious and unconscious mind because they spring up. You are going about your business, suddenly a memory comes from somewhere, or some deep-seated emotion comes from somewhere. And those are all buried in the subconsciousness because you are not really conscious at the time they are happening. If something happens, if you see it and do it with experience, then there should not be any remnant of that experience going into the subconscious. That's why whatever you do with attention. Attention means total attentiveness to the task you are doing. That means you are not going to take anything away from that, or you are not going to move away from what it is. It is what it is. You got to pay attention to each task. This simple thing will take you away from the multitasking menace that's going on. You can do multitasking, but each task, pay attention to every action. Ramana said, it is not the amount of work that's the problem. It is the interfering thoughts while you are working is the problem. That's why do the work with full attention. That itself is a meditation. So if you employ that, like Salwan was going to do the relaxation response, and that could be varied, but then real relaxation response where you can have it every minute of the day. If you do this, pay attention to every action. So that means you are with it. You are not away from it. That itself relaxes you. It is the drive to do something else while you are doing something that is the problem. So the mind, they have a structural classification and then they have a functional classification. Like I said, they have 64 different parts in ancient India, but these 4 are most important. If you take it, Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, Ahankar. Manas is a bundle of thoughts as they're coming and going, and it could be from the past, or it could be from what you see outside, or it could be from within you. Buddhi is the intellect, okay? It has to be sharp, but it has to have a base for the sharpness to work. Chanakya had that. That's why his intellect was fantastic, you know? So intellect by itself is not the problem, but what's the base from which it is working? Is it a stable base or is it unstable? Stable means undivided. Stable means really individual in the sense it is not divided into any fragment. You are not identified with anything. That is the stable base. That means you are one consciousness, all are having this intellect that was given for us to live well. But we are using it to separate us, to divide us, and then we are having the consequences of that. Now, Chitta is that intelligence that operating all the time, but we don't touch that. We kind of get into our divided intellect, and also we either live in the thoughts of the past or imagination of the future. That's the manas. Okay. Now the last one is the ahankar. Ahankar means everybody thinks ego. It's not the ego, it is the identification. If you are identified like I'm so and so culture, so and so religion, so and so race, all these things are really dividing the world. Even among your world, if you look at it, this identification really makes a problem for so many practical ways also. So ahankar is something you have to understand and do away with identification as much as possible. You're just a human being. If you identify just that, everybody else is like that, there are no problems. That's the ultimate, but at least you can do away with this identification before you sleep, and after you wake up also, you cultivate that. That is the yagna, interconnectedness with everybody else, the entire world. Then you operate every day in that yagna. Okay, this is the one I was focusing on. Okay, see, what is necessary to change a person is to change his awareness of himself. That was a Maslow. It's not an Indian, but he was a European thinker, I think. But so many Americans also, Thoreau or any number of people, they have really studied Indian metaphysical or mystical traditions, and they have come up with major conclusions of how this is something of a thought that was neglected for the perils of our culture right now. So the divided world and so much mental illness, so much wars, so much of distribution of resources, inequalities, and all those things, right? So this is something people have accepted now in the Western world, but it's not seeping through. The Western thinkers, they concluded we should not say before Christ and after Christ. We should say before Upanishads and after Upanishads. So if you understand the Upanishads impart on the civilization without any prejudice, you take the wisdom from it and apply to any society, I think they'll be better off. So the essential thing is you are the Atman or consciousness. And around that, your Vijnanamaya Kosha, all the knowledge. Around that, your Manomaya Kosha, all your thoughts and emotion. Around that, your energy body. That is the prana. And then around that, your Stula Sharira. That is the body. So knowing who you are is the most important. I can't emphasize this more, because if you go and then you sleep on it, tomorrow morning you'll wake up again with the body consciousness if you are stationed there, or mind consciousness, because you think your thoughts are you, you think your emotions are you, but what is behind you is the most important thing. Ramana used to have some widow cooks in his ashram because they didn't have any other place to go. So they used to give them ashram they can come and live there and work, cook, and they were doing. The cooks felt they were not able to participate in the talks. So she said, one cook said, what is there? There's nothing for us. So we just cook every day. We don't listen to talk. We don't meditate and all. Then he said, you are not that is moving in your thoughts. You are beyond that. With that, he taught them very profound truths in a very mundane activities. Even Aditya Hridayam, you take that, Rama was exhausted in the battle with Ravana that day. He gets wounded like anything by Ravana. So he comes out and he's really perturbed, and he thinks, what is this Ravana? He's such a warrior. He's injuring me like anything. So his manomaya kosha started to work. So he was thinking negative. He was thinking, I'm not good enough for that. Then Agastya Muni appears and tells me, hey Ram, remember who you really are. You are not that movement of thought. Krishnamurti also talked about this movement of thought, you know. So once you understand the movement of thought, not you, Rama understood that, he awakened, he realized that power within him. Even him had to be reminded by Agastya. After that, he awoke, and from his self, from his consciousness, he went and used his faculties of mind and body and fought very well. The same thing happened to Arjuna. He was despondent, he was completely depressed because he cannot kill his own people. He loses because he is identified with his body and with the current relationship that are going to end anyway. He did not identify himself to be the consciousness, to be the Atman. Krishna brings that knowledge forth. Once he realizes that, then his worrying mind is dropped and he was able to kaushalam, that means skill in action, has come. The same thing can happen to us. We can have a wisdom that we are not this body and mind, we are the Atman, and that can bring skill in action. Otherwise, you have 5 states of mind, they divided. So ideally, you have to have the concentrated inflow mind, or you have mastered and restrained your negative impulses. But before that, you can be very dull, that is the mudha, or you can have restless, distracted mind, which is the kshipta, and you can have a scattered but occasionally preoccupied mind, that is the vikshipta. You can analyze yourself where you are, and you will identify. It's not a bad thing to identify and to know where we are. Then we can progress to the last 2 states where your mind is concentrated and in flow, and you have mastered your own impulses, your own problems that are coming up, negative talk. I cannot do this, I cannot do without it. All those things are gone because you are managing the mind, because mind is an object, not it is ruling you. It is not your master. You made a slave because you identify yourself to be the consciousness. So we must learn to make the last 2 states natural. I strongly recommend everybody go through these states and see where you are, and then see how that affects your work, how you are living your life, everything, you know. So this slide is also very important because pay attention to the bottom slide on the right, okay? It talks about conscious mind and subconscious mind, right? Usually thoughts come to the conscious mind, and those thoughts, when they form like a habit, they form your character. So you are learning something, you learn the first steps, like playing tennis. Initially, you cannot pick up the ball, you cannot reach it firmly and all. But then as your skill develops, that forms a samskar in you. And as those samskaras hidden. The same thing with the negativities also. So if you allow the vrittis to go on without checking, they become your samskaras and they are buried in your subconscious. All the propaganda, all the media, all the politicians, everybody bringing it, if you don't pay attention, if you don't think with intelligence, they become your samskaras. So they become subconscious, you know, but you can do 2 things. You can do your work unselfishly, and that becomes your uncontrolled karma, that those results come back to you. But then you can understand what is aversion, what is attraction. Those are the ragadveshas. They are under your control. If you are conscious about, like for example, I'm testing myself in the power outage. I usually take a warm bath, but I have to take a very cold water. Even though it is summer, my body is not used to that. But then once I switch from the mind samskara into the consciousness, I was able to take that cold water very well. So it's a question of experimenting with these things in real life. I'm just telling you because this just happened. Now, this is a slide that is given to IIT kids. They were teaching them mind management. So they were telling them, have a good goal, realize that you are the consciousness and manage your mind, and then achieve your goals. But they always said, have a good goal. That is not just for your livelihood, or that's not just for your ambition. It should be loka kalyan, samishti. Those are the words that they use. You should be helping the more people that you can. That means your perspective has to be beyond your own personal needs or your own personal desires. So the first thing they taught was, don't alienate your mind from the self. Okay? If you alienate the mind as though that is everything, then you're going to have anxiety and depression overcoming you. But when you say, okay, this is an anxiety thought that has come to my mind, but I am the real consciousness behind, I'm going to look at it like a wave coming and going, like the wind coming and going, So Ramana had a famous saying, which I remember all the time. He said, thoughts change, but not you. You mean the consciousness. That is the you. Let go the passing thoughts and hold on to the unchanging self. So that is a very remarkable statement to tell you the entire thought structure is not you. The more you are identified with that, the more mental illness. And then it becomes samskaras, it becomes so strong, it will come out. And then the emotional insecurities. People, even in India, IIT people, they are having this anxiety, depression, and substance use, and getting irritated, getting nasty about people, or whatever. They saw them all in the school. They said, are you a victim of somebody else's opinion? Are you thinking of some passing public opinion? Are you victim of your phone? Are you victim of electronic gadgets? Where is your intelligence? Where are you? Why are you not having that self-control within you? So a lot of these modern practices that have come have really weakened the human being in that way. So in this enhancement of human being, what I'm saying is, be strong, have the control point within you, not outside, not in a phone, not in somebody's opinion, anything like that, okay? So they kind of explored, some people are perfectionists, they expect too much from other people, and they compare themselves with other people, and also materialism, judging everything by the pleasure it gives. And then we're going to come to the other principle of Shreyas versus Preyas. In that we'll discuss about what is pleasurable is not necessarily good for you in the long run. So you need to figure out what is good for me in the long run. That is Shreyas. Once you have that, then you can determine a good course of your life, and you can be stable, and you can achieve that, and thereby you can be happy. See, some people have no gratitude, and they are unable to enjoy the moment, and they want more and more, but they're never satisfied with what they have. So they were kind of giving these pointers to those kids who are at the highest achievement of intellect, but they don't have emotional intelligence, or they don't have any spiritual intelligence. But that was embedded in the culture. So that culture has taken up the so-called weakness of the pleasures, which is really true of the West. The main thing is pleasure-oriented society. Everything oriented towards the senses. And that's why we have so many problems. See, a self-oriented mind, was to remain unhappy no matter how positive its content is. This is the something that they taught them. The major cause of the depression is that. Another thing is, if you are stressful inside, even the young kids, 3-4-year-old, they're saying we are stressed these days because they have this unexplained anxiety about life. With this corona, so many young people are uncertain about their life, about what is going to happen, because it's all set in their mind. But if they concentrate on their abilities, on what they can do, and they appreciate what they have, they will grow from there. Instead of imagining something unachievable and then getting really depressed about it. So this is the experiment they did. I think I had shown this slide before. A cupcake versus an apple was placed in front of the child, and he was tested which will he go for. When he was very small, obviously he was going for the cupcake. But the adult also, are they going for the immediate pleasures or something good for them? Both food-wise, food are not only the nutrients, but also what you consume in your mind. What kind of things you are exposing yourself, what kind of gossip, what kind of nonsensical news, negatives, and all those things. Without really thinking about it, they allow them to seep through it. Why do you have to have only a few minutes of yoga practice and meditation in the morning, and the rest of the time you are exposing yourself to all sorts of toxics in the mind? And that is going to result in the long run. So why don't you listen to news only one time of the day, at the end of the day, rather than this 24-hour news, which people are consuming unconsciously. And they start with the negative. They always do negative. So that's also you have to determine. Like that, anything that is coming from outside into your mind, you got to evaluate this. Is this pleasurable for me, or is this good for me in the long run? That is the shreyas that they promoted. So in that context, I was listening to a discourse by one of the Telugu Pandits. He was talking about 7 qualities a student should have. And at that time, how it was described in some old Telugu book, he started with how you have to be not to be late to anything. Imagine ancient India talking about first principle for the student is never to be late for anything, right? So never to be late for anything. And then next one is have a diet that is very nutritious and also keeps you hungerless so that you can sit down and learn. And then be truthful and be peaceful. Don't go and participate in all these political battles of somebody else and then ruin your aims. You can stand for something good, but then not to participate without knowing what it is all about. Okay. And then he talked about celibacy, brahmacharya, how to conserve your energies. So like that, all those things are really oriented to shreyas, what is good for you in the long run. First of all, see your aim in life. Is the life only for yourself and for your loved ones, or are you going to work for the entire society? Vasudhaika Kutumbakam. They didn't say one Hindu or one particular religion. They said the entire humanity and the living beings, both the plants and animals of the world. I think we need that now, because this coronavirus also we're not able to fight very well because we are all divided. And that's why future viruses are going to be real problem. But if you inculcate this in the minds of the young people, Vivekananda said, give me the young people, I will give you the alliance that can shape the future. So young people in 20s and all that, they were taught about this shreyas. What is good for you in the long run? What's good for the society in the long run? That is the one. But then modern society built everything on pleasure. And that is the problem. All the sensations are really explored. There, they advise to conserve them, to be keeping them limited. So, dharma, the kama, moksha, kama is there, but the desires have to be controlled. Now, this is the mental fluctuation, how each thought makes change in your brain. I'm not talking about mind here, I'm talking about brain. So if you are not aware of it, those fluctuations can bury into your subconsciousness as samskaras, as habits. And then they come up when you are unconscious. So usually we have the inlets of the mind, either through our memory or through our activity or through our senses, right? And then once they come, they modify the mind. The thought itself has idea and emotion and also vital energy. So if you are thinking all the time without a particular direction, you are going to form so many modifications of the mind that will be going as samskaras in your subconscious, and they come out. So that's why being alert, awake all the time is important. Otherwise, if your modulations happening, going, coming, you don't know what they are, and then you have thoughts are different, thoughts are coming, that's usually the ordinary mind is. But if you don't allow the modulations to happen because you're alert when the thoughts are coming, even the other thoughts are so many different thoughts, they are not similar, you can have a focused mind. That means the mind is in awareness. It is not allowing the thoughts to modify the mind. But if you have no modification of the mind and all the thoughts are coming out similar, that means you are concentrated on one particular thing, one particular aim, one particular goal. But if you don't have any fluctuation of vrittis, even if they come and go, you don't have any problem. And then even on thoughts also like that, that is the meditative mind. That means you have taken a step into the consciousness. So whatever is happening at the mind level doesn't bother you. So the way to generate a concentrated mind is through the power of attention. Attention is more your own property than vrittis and pratyas. See, pratyas are inlets of senses, memory, and activity. They are coming from outside, right? And then the impact on the brain is called vrittis. That also happens on its own. But awareness, attention is your property. That is the one you have to inculcate. So all you have to do is, how much time during the day I am attentive, I am in awareness of everything. Krishnamurti described something like this. Suppose you go and see a tree on a meadow standing alone. When you see the tree, if you say, oh, it used to be like that and it was sunset is happening, or this kind of trees in particular country is better, or you say, I wish this has fall leaves rather than no leaves on the tree right now, then you are missing the tree. You are not being attentive. You are either bringing the memory or your imagination into play. Then you are not attentive. If you are attentive, you don't have any memory, you don't have any imagination. You face it as it is. This is the thing that we need to practice. Attentive to everything. So if you are aware all the time, you're really investing in the thought process. And then your will become stronger and stronger. Okay? But if you don't have a worthy goals, there is no point learning concentration. You have to focus it on worthy goals. So take charge of yourself and focus your attention. That is the power of attention. That's the meaning of this slide. See how it is focused, then it is all over in the next, the right side. So this is what we were talking about, you know. If you allow the senses to run whichever way they want, they will take you wherever they want. But if you consciously control of senses is the first step. Like for example, these 4 days, I was eating only bread with some bananas maybe, but I was watching my inner self. Am I craving for things that I usually eat or not? So as you practice self-study, you will notice it is not going to be that difficult. I was okay without any of those. So every opportunity gives you, every situation gives you this opportunity to self-test yourself and to grow, not to blame yourself. If you are like that, you are like that. But then you see your senses are not running their way. Like that, your activity also creates impressions which may bypass your conscious mind. That's why you have to be alert and awake and attentive. Okay? And also your previous impressions or memories, all those things also may come up. At that time also, you have to look at yourself closely. Okay, so they were recommending this to the IIT students. You have to limit yourself to the exposures that you want towards your goals. First of all, make good social conscious goals, and then take the right content for the goals. Otherwise, you are not controlling the ideas that are coming your way from the media, from the society, from your own conclusions and all that, okay? And then you have to have kind of right conduct. You know, daily routines, they have to be normal, you know, limited and confined to your goal, rather than getting into all sorts of entertainments and also the goals. They were talking about that. And they talked about cognitive reframing, where negative thoughts come, you change them, and then you sit down and breathe and control your hectic thoughts. And then watch what kind of minds are you dealing with. If the people are body conscious or only mind conscious, and then they want to approve you, if you are trying for that approval, then that goes against your spiritual realization of that you are a conscious being. Okay, this is my favorite topic because this is the biggest problem right now, and also it is leading to the biggest cause of unhappiness: overthinking. Why do you have to think about everything under the sun anyway? First of all, the thinking is out of control. That's why the overthinking has come. But if it's control, would you call it overthinking? You are thinking only what you need to think, what you need to work, what you need to relate with people, that kind of thing. So the electronic world has magnified this. You are exposing yourself to all sorts of political stories, all sorts of negative stories all the time, 24 hours. Then you are not allowing your mind to take a break to recover. I'm going to have a special segment on the electronic world, how to declutter that, how to be intelligent about using the technology as a tool. We're going to talk about that next class. Now, these are some of the negatives that people do it and then aren't aware of it. So you can catch yourself if you are complaining or you have a limiting belief saying that this is only good, that is not good, or blaming others, negative self-talk, that has become a big deal. Then dwelling on the past. Obviously, when you are not in the present, either you are looking to the future or dwelling on the past, or resistant to change, and the need to impress others, the need to always be right, the need for other people. I listed all these things so that this can be used as self-study for us. We can see, we can catch ourselves. I do that all the time, sometimes. So I have to catch that at the time. Then only I can see how peaceful, how rested I am when I am stationed in the self, in the consciousness. That is, by the way, once you are rested in the consciousness, that's an immense peaceful, 100 times better than the relaxation that we get from Shavasana. Okay, this is Emotional Agility by Susan David. She's a modern psychologist. She put it for Corona era, what we should be doing and all. So gentle acceptance, it is what it is. Just accept the coronavirus is here and we are going through the pandemic, and have some compassion for yourself. And in my way, what it is see it, it's the working of your mind, thinking about all the negative things. Establish a routine where you meditate and get the mind under control, and then you correct in a meaningful way with other people, like I'm trying to do my bit by telling them what I learned about immunity, what I learned about this meditation, what I learned about consciousness. I'm trying to share people, give a perspective, about the science and also the technology of consciousness. And then you can always reset and conclude what is the wisdom and follow that up. Okay, this is the slide I was telling you, take home slide. What it is, you think positive, be sociable, establish healthy habits, and keep your mind active and learn new things. That is the one which forms the new neurons, new brain. And also exercise is very, very important. Then you can rewire your brain through your mind, through your thoughts. If you allow your thoughts to go negative all the time, or if you allow your thoughts be identified as those thoughts are you, that your personality is you, then it will leave an imprint on your brain. And the next time, that part of the brain which formed these habits, or samskaras we call it, they come up. And without you knowing, they bring up. Suppose you are getting irritated with somebody, that becomes a habit. Even before you know it, you kind of get reactive. So to slow down the reactive, so unmodulate that brain that changed by your persistent negative thinking, you got to meditate. That means you have to be aware of the movement of thought. Once the movement of thought is not there, then you are in meditativeness. You don't have to do meditation separately. That's why Ramana said, your original nature is in meditation. That means it has no movement of thought. Now you brought in this movement of thought. Now though you are limiting with measures or practices to limit that limitation you created yourself. So it's a kind of a dog chasing the tail, or making the mind as a policeman when it is the thief. Now, this is a spiral. You can go upward towards freedom, joy, love, empowerment, passion, eagerness, happiness, optimism, contentment, hopefulness, and all that. Or you can go down pessimism, frustration, irritation, impatience, worry, doubt, anger, rage, jealousy, hatred. So the spiral is starts from boredom. You can elevate yourself by creating optimistic thoughts or eagerness or passion and empower yourself, or you can go down by being pessimistic, frustrating, by worrying about it, by getting angry or guilt. So you can choose yourself which way you want to go. Now, if you don't do that, this side, I think I have presented before, but it's worth looking at it again in this modern era where attention deficit, depression, corruption, crime, environmental degradation, so much. What they did was they identified this and identified the cause and saw what was the treatment in modern era, what is the real solution according to yoga techniques. So if you have a child that is distracted of attention, they give tranquilizers here. They kind of, numb it. That's all. But the real cause is uncontrolled exposure, giving them a phone, giving them TV, giving them all sorts of messages to the extent they don't even sit down and have conversation with people anymore. They chat. Wife and husband are chatting. People in the same house are chatting. So they have to be given a goal-oriented. Like if you give a music to a child that is attention distracted, he attends to that music. He enjoys that. And from that, he had a focused life because his focus is on the music. And then depression. See, there is no sustained interest in anything. That's the definition of that, right? Basically, that's because ego-centeredness. I am depressed. I am feeling frustrated. I am the one who is sad. They give antidepressants for that. Again, band-aid. But if you put them in service, yoga, and learning something new, they kind of find so much in giving in a service form to other people, they find meaning for themselves. The emotion, they say, the equations do not work in emotions. 2 plus 2 adds up to 4. But if you take 2 minus 2, it becomes 0. But in emotions, the more you give, the more you'll have. Like a mother's love. A son comes home, she gives all the attention, all the love for him. But then daughter comes a few days later, she has all the love for her also. So that's how more giving it, the more you grow it. That's what in depression, they want to service-oriented life. Go and help somebody who is in need, or by word or by deed. And then corruption is basically what is happening is people who are in power exploiting the power, people who are not in power because of the selfishness and greed. That's the cause. What they are doing, punishment. See, overcrowding of the jails. So much problems in the jails too. Instead, teach them social responsibility. That is the yoga technique. Okay, so that's a big topic in capital punishment versus reform. That itself a topic. But I think human being has to be reformed. You can have punishment in a modified way, but ultimate aim is to reform that human being. Like that crime also. If you make them service outreach activities, they are away from the anger, pride, and all those qualities. This is deviance of behavior. You have to identify and then treat him like a human being. Environmental degradation. This is the big topic of our generation, and this is the most important problem that we are facing. The planet is not going to be there otherwise. That Agnabhava I was talking about, that's interconnectedness feeling. If you can inculcate in the young people, they are going to be more together. They're going to work more towards the saving of the planet, than anybody else. But if you encourage greed and consumerism, and then you are just polluting the world, and then you are making people aware that we are polluting, but without that interconnected feeling, which is the Agnabhava, Yogastha Kurkarmani. That's what in Bhagavad Gita he says about that. So I put this here because once you realize that you are in body consciousness or mind consciousness, we don't have to go and really punish ourselves. You just accept that it is. It is so because of the education or awareness training or consciousness that has come like that. Okay, but if you can move on, that is the gift. Again, our original slide. Remember, sun is our consciousness. That is the one which is illuminating our mind. So mind should be driven from inside, controlled from inside, not from outside. So next week, we're going to talk about information overload, how the electronics and all the gadgets are ruling us. I'm going to give you some practical ways of decluttering the electronically, how to see the phone effect, how to manage emails in a more effective way, more enlightened way, and also how to take advantage of the social media to communicate the message that we have, to promote interconnectedness. All that will be discussed next week. That's going to be a very significant chapter for our modern life, and also how we use the technology, but at the same time, use the technology of yoga to nullify the bad effects of the technology. So declutter in the electronic era. And this topic, this mind is enormous, like that water. That's why I put this here. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.